A couple weeks ago, I was introduced to the Touhou project, a very passionate fan-made universe filled with lots of different characters and lots of different genres of games. Now I'm back for another game in the series, Touhou Scarlet Curiosity, an action RPG that stars the vampire Remilia. But is this action RPG worth your time, or is this one game in the Touhou project not worth checking out? Scarlet Curiosity is an action RPG where you have two different characters that you can choose from, Remilia the vampire or her head maid Sakuya. Now both of the characters end up controlling differently and have a few different deviations, but for the most part they have the same main plot. Without going into too much spoiler territory, the Scarlet Devil Mansion owned by Remilia is attacked, and your goal is to find the monster that ended up doing so. Of course, along the way you'll meet various other characters, and the entire tone of the game is always kept at a relatively playful level, which is something that I've noticed, of course, with the Touhou project in general. After the introduction to the game, you'll be introduced to the world map where you'll be able to select where you would like to go to next. Map markers that are represented with an exclamation point means that you must complete them in order for the story to progress, but you can actually go to other areas that you've already completed or ones that aren't necessarily a part of the main plot at that point in order just to explore, find items, and level up. As you're defeating the monsters throughout the course of the game, of course, you do gain that experience to level up, in which doing so, you will of course gain better stats, such as more health, but you'll also gain some new abilities. Besides your basic attack by using square, the triangle, circle, as well as R1 are used for your special attacks. And there's a few different types of special attacks, with the R1 being the devastating attack that can defeat a lot of enemies in a bigger area, and then your triangle and circle being relegated for the slightly lesser attacks, but you gain new ones and power them up throughout the course of the game, and you can equip and de-equip them at any point by going to your skills menu. Speaking of the equipment, you will also get random equipment from defeating enemies, finding them in jars, or finding them in chests. These items are dropped at a random interval, so you're going to get a lot of the same ones, and you're never sure which item you're going to end up finding. But even with the items with the same exact name, they end up having slightly different stats a lot of the times, so it's always worth picking up every weapon and checking it out and seeing which stats end up being better for whatever particular build of your character that you are going for. You have your main weapon, you have a set of armor, as well as an accessory that you'll be able to find new equipment for and be able to power up your character. While the locations change up quite a bit as you're exploring throughout the world map and going from chapter to chapter, since the enemy variety is so lacking, it does get a little bit tedious. Thankfully, you don't have to fight every single enemy that you run into. A lot of times you can actually skip them and even jump over them and just avoid them altogether. Of course, you're going to want to defeat a bunch of them so that you can level up, of course, for the game's key boss fights. Now, there's two different types of boss fights, either a giant monster in a big arena where you'll have to wait for the right opportunity in order to attack them, and a lot of the boss fights though are just kind of a one-on-one fight against another character. The arenas are a little bit more open, you have freedom of movement and can move around and attack them thusly. A lot of the attacks are of course based on the kind of shoot-'em-up style that the Touhou series is known for, so getting used to the kind of shoot-'em-up styles of attacks, you'll have to do a lot of dodging and in and out of different bullets and learning the patterns, and then take that right opportunity to run up and deal a whole bunch of damage. The game only features one difficulty for you to jump into, though once you complete the game you do unlock an extra dungeon for you to tackle that has higher level and more powerful creatures. Throughout the course of playing though, I didn't need to do any extra grinding. Just defeating enemies along my path of the levels gave me plenty of experience in order to level up my character, and I never really ran into too much problems with boss fights unless I went into that particular boss fight with already low health. The game features a lot of checkpoints, so if you end up dying or end up missing platforms, as there is platforming spread throughout the course of the game, you usually don't get set back very far and can continue on now with a replenished health bar. The game story is told through text only. There's no voice acting amongst the characters, and unfortunately it's relatively short. It only took me a little over 2.5 hours in order to complete all 10 chapters and beat the final boss of the game. From the technical side of things, while I didn't run into any crashing, there was definitely some slowdown and stuttering from time to time. I wouldn't say it happened all that often, but it was definitely noticeable. It didn't really detract though from my experience. The music is all quite nice, and I'm sure has a lot of the themes and melodies from other Touhou project games. Touhou Scarlet Curiosity is $19.99 on the PlayStation 4 and unfortunately does not include a full trophy list or a platinum trophy to obtain. I will say if you're an action RPG fan, if you like games like the East series like I do, you will probably find enjoyment. Unfortunately though, with a lot of the creatures being repeated so often and not really a lot of depth to the combat system, even with unlockable moves, I found that the game started to drag pretty quickly, and with only 2.5 hours of game length, having any point in time where it really started to feel monotonous really wasn't necessarily a great thing. Though I will say I am happy for Touhou Project fans, as there's so little of the series released outside Japan, so at least finally there is a few games trickling out. But I'm going to be giving the game a 5 out of 10. I wish there was a little bit more depth to the action RPG elements, a bit more variety to the creatures, and maybe some unlockable moves to entice me playing the game outside of beating the main story. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course I hope you enjoy.